The night sky burned. A streak of fire cut through the storm clouds, falling fast toward the dark hills beyond the human colony on Vesper 9. The sound came next, a low roar that shook the ground like thunder. Then came silence, broken only by rain. Eli Ward lifted his head from under the tin roof of his small shack. He was 17, thin from hunger, his clothes patched more times than he could count. The rain poured in sheets, drumming on metal and dirt. Most people in the colony stayed inside when storms hit. But Eli had nothing to lose. He stepped out into the cold, his boots sinking in mud. The smell of wet dust and smoke filled the air. In the distance, beyond the scrapyard fence, he saw the faint glow of something burning, orange against the black sky. He stood there for a moment, heart pounding. He had seen small ships fall before, smugglers, broken drones, sometimes cargo haulers. Scavengers always reached them first, taking everything before soldiers arrived. But this light looked different. Brighter. Closer. Eli grabbed his flashlight and the old hunting knife he kept for wild dogs. The beam of light trembled as he aimed it across the rain. He hesitated, whispering to himself, "Just a quick look. Maybe there's something worth selling." The storm pushed against him as he ran through the broken fields. Mud splashed up his legs. Lightning flashed, showing the twisted metal fences and rusted machines of the old mining zone. Then he saw it, half buried in a crater. A small ship lay torn apart. Silver plates scattered like bones, smoke rising into the rain. The air smelled of burned metal and something sharp, almost sweet. Eli slowed down, eyes wide. The ship was nothing like he'd seen before. Smooth curves, glowing veins of blue light along the hull, symbols written in alien script. He swallowed hard. "Alien tech," he whispered. "That's worth more than my whole life." A low sound came from inside the wreck. Not metal, not fire. A voice. Eli froze. Through the rain he heard weak, broken words, a whisper that didn't sound human. His flashlight shook as he stepped closer. The ship's door hung half open, bent from impact. Inside, sparks flickered over shattered glass and hanging wires. Then he saw him. An old alien lay against the wall, silver blood dripping down his arm. His skin was pale green with a faint glow under it. His clothes looked like fine silk mixed with armor, torn and burned. His eyes, large and bright, opened for a moment. Eli stopped breathing. He had seen aliens before, always from far away, at the trade ports or in holovids. They were the rich ones, the powerful ones, not someone lying in the dirt, bleeding. The alien spoke again, voice trembling. "Help me." Eli took a step back. He looked around, no soldiers yet, no scavengers. The ship was smoking, ready to explode. He could run now. He could leave and no one would ever know. But the voice came again, softer this time, almost human. "Please." Eli's heart twisted. He remembered nights sleeping hungry, wishing someone had helped him. He bit his lip, then moved forward. He climbed into the wreck, slipping on metal. "Don't move," he said quietly, though the alien probably didn't understand. He grabbed a broken pipe for leverage and reached for the alien's arm. The skin was cold but pulsing faintly with light. The alien's eyes focused on him. For a second, Eli thought he saw something more. Not fear, not pain, but trust. A flash of light tore the sky open behind him. Another ship flying low, searchlights sweeping the hills. Panic hit him. "They'll find you," he muttered. "And me." He looked around quickly, spotting a half-burned tarp and a small hover cart. He wrapped the alien as best as he could, dragging him out of the wreck just as the sound of engines grew louder. The rain hit harder, hiding them in darkness. Eli pulled the alien toward a nearby cave under the ridge. The old man groaned in pain, whispering words Eli couldn't understand. "Hang on," Eli said between breaths. "Almost there." He dragged the body inside, away from the light. The cave smelled of earth and damp stone. He set the alien down gently and checked the wound. Deep burn marks, glowing blue blood leaking slowly. Eli tore off his sleeve and pressed it against the wound. "You'll be fine. Just don't die on me, all right?" The alien's hand twitched. His fingers brushed Eli's wrist, and for a brief moment, Eli felt warmth spread through his skin, strange and electric. The alien's breathing steadied. Outside, the searchlights passed over the ridge, then faded. Only the sound of rain remained. Eli sat beside the alien, breathing hard. His hands were shaking. "What did I just do?" he whispered. He looked down at the alien, fragile, weak, but somehow peaceful. Maybe tomorrow he'd take him to the med station. Maybe someone would pay him for saving a life. Or maybe they'd arrest him for hiding an alien. He didn't know. All he knew was that he couldn't leave him there. As the night deepened, the fire from the wreck burned low behind the ridge. The rain softened. Eli leaned back against the wall, exhausted. The alien stirred once more, eyes half open. He whispered a single word that Eli almost didn't hear. "Thank you." Eli stared at him, speechless. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this night would change everything. Outside, the wind carried the sound of engines far away. Somewhere out there, someone was already searching for the old alien. And soon, they would come for Eli, too. The storm was far from over. Morning came slowly on Vesper 9. The storm had passed, but the air still smelled of smoke and wet dust. Thin sunlight filtered through the cave mouth, painting pale streaks across the rough stone. Eli opened his eyes to find the alien still breathing beside him, faint but steady. The boy's back ached from sleeping on the floor. He sat up, blinking the sleep from his eyes, and checked the wound again. The fabric he'd tied around it was soaked in silver-blue blood. It shimmered faintly in the light, almost beautiful in a strange way. He didn't know what kind of creature he was dealing with, or what kind of trouble he'd brought onto himself. But when the alien groaned softly, trying to move, Eli's fear melted away. Instinct took over. "Easy," he whispered. "Don't move too much. You lost a lot of whatever that is." The alien's eyelids fluttered. For a moment, those bright eyes looked straight into his. The alien spoke something soft, a language Eli didn't understand, before falling back into silence. Eli sighed and stood. "All right, I'll find something," he said to himself. He slipped out of the cave and down toward the abandoned mining fields, careful to avoid any patrol drones that might still be searching the crash site. He scavenged for supplies, old blankets, scraps of fabric, a cracked water canister. Near an empty worker station, he found a small med gel packet that had half solidified but still glowed green. It would have to do. When he returned, the alien was awake again, weak but watching him. His pupils adjusted to the dim light, glowing faintly like tiny suns. Eli knelt beside him and spoke slowly, hoping words might reach him somehow. "You're lucky I'm not one of the scavengers. They'd have stripped you for parts." The alien blinked, confused. Then he made a sound, short, rough, like a laugh that hurt to breathe. Eli smiled despite himself. "Yeah, you don't get it, do you?" He applied the med gel to the wound carefully. The alien winced, then relaxed as the gel hissed against the burned flesh. The smell of ozone filled the cave. Within moments, the bleeding slowed. When Eli looked up, the alien was still watching him, not with fear but curiosity. He pointed to his chest and said, "Raal." Eli frowned. "Raal?" The alien nodded once. "Yes, Raal." Then he pointed at Eli. "Eli," the boy replied. "Eli Ward." Raal repeated it slowly, like he was memorizing every sound. "Eli." A strange calm filled the cave. For the first time since the crash, Eli didn't feel alone. He broke a piece of dried ration bread and handed it over. Raal studied it for a second, then took it carefully. As though the act itself meant something sacred, they ate in silence. One human orphan, one alien stranger, sharing food inside a cave that smelled of smoke and rain. By evening, Raal tried to sit up. He winced, clutching his side. His hands trembled, but his eyes had regained some strength. From his belt, he pulled out a small metallic device, smooth and round, no bigger than Eli's palm. He pressed a symbol on its surface, and a soft light spread across the cave, replacing the dim glow of Eli's flashlight. Raal said something Eli couldn't understand, then gestured for the boy to come closer. Eli hesitated but stepped forward. The device emitted a faint hum. A thin beam of golden light scanned across Eli's face. He flinched. "Hey! What are you doing?" Raal held up a hand, gentle and calm. "Safe," he said. "You? Help." "Good." Eli exhaled slowly. "You better not be tagging me or something." The beam faded. The device folded in on itself and went dark. Raal smiled faintly, exhaustion softening his features. "Thank you," he said, the words clear this time, if a bit broken. Eli's eyes widened. "You understand me?" Raal nodded once, weakly. "Some words, learn. Quick." The boy couldn't help but grin. "Guess that makes one of us." That night, Raal slept peacefully for the first time. Outside, the moon of Vesper 9 hung low over the hills, and the faint remains of the crash glowed in the distance. Eli stayed awake, sitting by the cave mouth with his knife in hand. He thought about the stories people told, about aliens who owned cities, who could buy entire worlds. Why would one of them be flying alone in a small ship through this dead zone? Nothing made sense. He looked over his shoulder at the sleeping alien. Raul's breathing was steady now, the light beneath his skin pulsing gently. He looked fragile, not like a rich alien lord, but like an old man who had seen too much. Eli whispered, "Who are you, really?" A sudden hum broke the silence. The same golden device Raul had used earlier flickered to life again, projecting faint lines of light across the cave wall. Strange shapes and alien text. Eli couldn't read any of it, but one image caught his eye. A massive ship surrounded by hundreds of smaller ones flying in formation. He felt a chill crawl up his spine. Whoever Raul was, he wasn't ordinary. He turned off the device gently and placed it beside the alien. Outside, thunder rolled again in the far distance. The rain had stopped, but dark clouds still waited beyond the hills, a warning of more trouble to come. Eli leaned back, whispering to himself, "I hope I didn't just save the wrong kind of man." But deep down, he already knew. Whatever this was, it was bigger than anything he'd ever known. The next morning, the light over Vesper 9 was pale and cold. Eli woke to the sound of the wind whistling through the cave mouth. Raul was awake too, sitting up now, his posture stronger than before. The wound on his side had sealed into a faint silver scar. The med gel and the alien's own strange healing had done their job. Eli rubbed his eyes and smiled. "You look better than last night." Raul tilted his head. "Better," he repeated slowly, testing the word as though it were new. Then he gave a tired smile. "Thanks, Eli." Hearing his name in that rough alien accent made Eli grin. "You're learning fast," Raul nodded. "You saved me." Eli shrugged, pretending it wasn't a big deal. You'd have done the same, but deep down he wasn't sure. Aliens didn't risk much for humans these days. Humans were the lower kind, the workers, the forgotten class. Still, something about Raul felt different. He wasn't cruel or proud. He looked at Eli not like a stranger, but like an equal. Raul reached into his torn jacket and pulled out a small cube made of some smooth, silvery material. Its surface shifted like liquid metal under the light. He held it out to Eli with a trembling hand. Eli blinked. "What's this?" Raul's eyes softened. "Gift. For you." Eli hesitated, taking it carefully. It was warm to the touch, lighter than it looked. "I can't take this." Raul shook his head. "Keep safe, never sell. It will find you again." The words confused Eli. "Find me again. What do you mean?" But Raul didn't answer. He only leaned back, looking out toward the morning light as if listening to something far away. The silence between them grew heavy, broken only by the faint hum coming from the cube. Eli turned it over in his hands. When his thumb brushed a tiny groove, the cube glowed faintly blue. Lines of light spread across its surface, forming shifting patterns that looked like stars. He stared, wide-eyed. "What is this thing?" Raul's gaze turned serious. "Power, memory, home." Eli looked at him, unsure if he understood. "Is it dangerous?" The alien's expression darkened. "Only if in wrong hands." Before Eli could ask more, a faint sound echoed through the valley, a deep hum that made the ground tremble. Raul's head snapped up, his eyes narrowed, scanning the cave entrance. "What is it?" Eli whispered. Raul's voice was calm but sharp. "Soldiers. Dominion searchers. They come." Eli's stomach tightened. He crawled to the entrance and looked out. Far off, 3 dark drones swept across the hills, their searchlights cutting through the early mist. The sound of engines grew louder. Raul tried to stand, gripping the cave wall for support. "They must not find me." "Not yet." Eli rushed to his side. "You can't walk." Raul met his eyes. "I must." "You hide. Keep cube hidden, promise." Eli shook his head. "No, I'm not leaving you." But the alien's tone turned firm, almost commanding. "Promise." Eli hesitated, then nodded. "All right. I promise." Raul's expression softened again. "Good boy." He pressed his hand briefly to Eli's shoulder, a gesture of gratitude or maybe farewell. Then, with surprising strength, he activated a small device on his wrist. A shimmer of light spread across him, bending the air until his figure blurred like a mirage. Eli stepped back in awe. "You can cloak?" Raul gave the faintest smile. "Not for long." The hum of drones came closer. Eli ducked behind the rocks, clutching the cube tight against his chest. The searchlight swept across the ridge, grazing the cave mouth. One drone paused, hovering near. Eli held his breath. Then, after a long moment, it drifted away. The noise faded into the distance. When he turned back, the alien was gone. "Rael," he whispered. Only the empty cave answered. He looked around, the blanket, the bloodstains, the faint smell of metal and smoke. Everything real, everything proof that he hadn't imagined it. But Rael was gone as if he'd never been there. Eli sank down, staring at the cube. It still glowed faintly in his palm, reacting to his heartbeat. A strange calm filled him, mixed with fear. He didn't know why, but he felt sure Rael wasn't dead. He had left on purpose. The cube pulsed once, brighter, and then dimmed. Eli whispered, "I'll keep it safe, I promise." He hid it under his shirt and stepped out into the gray morning. The wreckage smoke had turned thin, almost gone. But as he reached the ridge, he noticed tracks in the mud. Bootprints, heavy ones. Someone else had been here after the drones left. He crouched down, touching the mark. Human. Fresh. Someone was looking for Rael, too. Eli straightened, heart racing. He looked up at the cloudy sky, where the faint trail of the drones still lingered. He didn't know who these soldiers served or what they wanted, but something told him the cube in his pocket was worth more than anything he'd ever seen. And somewhere out there, the alien he'd saved was running for his life. Eli turned toward the settlement, rain beginning to fall again. He pulled up his hood and whispered, "Whatever this is, I'm in it now." The colony town of Vesper 9 was quieter than usual that evening. The storm had passed, leaving puddles in the dirt streets that reflected the dull light from neon shop signs. The air smelled of wet metal and smoke. People whispered about the crash from 2 nights ago, about the soldiers who came, the wreckage that vanished, and the rumor that something valuable had been lost in the hills. Eli moved through the crowd with his hood up and his hands deep in his coat pockets. Inside, close against his chest, he kept the small silver cube Rael had given him. He hadn't let it out of his sight since the night the alien disappeared. He didn't understand it, but it hummed sometimes, like it was alive, breathing with him. Whenever it did, he felt something warm and steady, as if Rael was still watching him. He reached the end of the market street where a broken hollow screen flickered above a bar. Static filled the air. Then a news anchor's voice came through. Breaking news from the Galactic Network. The interstellar magnate Lord Raltor is officially listed as missing, following the destruction of his private shuttle near Vesper 9. Eli froze. On the screen appeared a photo, an alien face he knew too well. The calm eyes. The faint silver glow under the skin. "Rael," the crowd murmured as the anchor continued. Lord Raltor, founder of the Rallian Trade Consortium, was one of the wealthiest and most influential beings in the Orion sector. Officials believe his shuttle malfunctioned during re-entry. The Dominion has dispatched search teams, but so far no trace of his body has been recovered. Eli's pulse raced. Raltor, Billionaire, Trade Consortium. He had saved that man. He stepped back from the screen, heart thudding in his chest. The cube under his coat vibrated slightly as if responding to the sound of Rael's name. "Impossible," he whispered. He never said who he was. A tall man beside him turned, narrowing his eyes. "You say something, boy?" Eli shook his head quickly and slipped into the alley, disappearing into the shadows. In the dim light, he pulled out the cube. Its surface shimmered faintly, forming lines and symbols he still couldn't understand. The patterns moved faster now and almost frantic. He spoke softly. "You're connected to him, aren't you?" The cube pulsed once. Eli's fingers trembled. If the soldiers were looking for Rael, they'd be looking for this too. Whatever it wasn't just a memory or a toy. It was valuable, maybe beyond imagination. A noise came from the end of the alley. Heavy boots. Voices. Eli's instincts screamed, "Run." He slipped behind a stack of crates just as 2 figures appeared, both wearing dark cloaks and breathing masks. Their voices were low and harsh. "Scan shows residual energy here," one said. "The signature matches Raltor's encryption," the other grunted. "Then the boy has it. The orphan from the scrapyard." Eli's stomach dropped. "They know about me." He backed away slowly, every breath loud in his ears. But his boot hit a metal pipe, sending a sharp clang through the alley. The men spun around. "There!" Eli bolted. He ran through the back streets, splashing through puddles and leaping over trash heaps. Shouts followed him. "Stop the kid! and a flash of red light seared past his head as a blaster fired. He turned sharply into a narrow passage, heart hammering. The cube glowed brighter in his hand, almost guiding him through the dark. He ducked under a fallen sign and found himself at the edge of the scrapyard, the same place he'd seen the ship fall. He dropped behind a pile of broken machinery and tried to catch his breath. The hunters' voices echoed nearby, distorted by the metal maze. "Spread out. The artifact must be here." Eli clutched the cube tighter. "Artifact," he whispered. So that's what they called it. He remembered Raoul's words. "Keep this safe. Never sell it. It will find you again." Now those words made sense. The cube was more than a gift, it was a key. A sudden thought hit him. If Raoul was who they said he was, a billionaire, a leader, then maybe this cube wasn't just valuable. Maybe it belonged to him in a way no one else could claim. He had to keep it hidden. He had to survive. Eli waited until the voices faded, then crawled out and made his way back toward the old tunnels beneath the colony. The cube's glow dimmed, settling to a soft pulse. He looked up at the stars peeking through the clouds. Somewhere out there, Raoul was alive. He could feel it. "Why did you give this to me?" he whispered. No answer came, only the faint hum of alien machinery in his hand, like a heartbeat waiting for its owner to return. Eli tightened his grip. He didn't understand the cube or the danger chasing him, but one thing was clear. This was no longer about survival. It was about destiny. And as the cold wind swept through the dark, Eli knew that whatever was coming next would change his life, and maybe the fate of two worlds, forever. Night returned to Vesper 9 like a heavy blanket. The colony lights flickered weakly under the cold wind, and shadows moved where they shouldn't. Deep in the undercity tunnels, Eli ran, his boots echoing on rusted metal floors, his breath ragged in the dark. He had been running for hours. The hunters were still after him. Their voices had faded, but he knew they weren't gone. They had tech, scanners, drones, maybe even tracking signals tied to the cube. He pressed the small object tighter against his chest as he moved through the maze of tunnels that only scavengers and orphans knew. Water dripped from the ceiling. Rats scurried past his feet. The air smelled of oil, mold, and fear. He stopped at last inside an old maintenance chamber. A flickering lamp hung from the ceiling, barely giving enough light to see. He sat down on an overturned crate and finally let himself breathe. The cube lay in his palm, silent and cold now. Its glow had faded after the chase, but the smooth metal still felt alive under his fingers, like it was waiting. "Why me?" he whispered. "Why didn't you give this to someone who knows what to do?" For a long moment, there was only the dripping water and the faint hum of distant machinery. Then the cube pulsed once, a slow, warm light that made the room glow blue. Eli blinked. "You can hear me?" The light flickered twice in response. He laughed nervously. "That's a yes, isn't it?" He turned it over carefully. The patterns across its surface shifted, forming a holographic projection, lines of alien text and symbols. Then the symbols rearranged into something simpler, a map, a three-dimensional map of the system, showing Vesper 9 and several distant stars. One of them blinked red. "Is that where you are?" he whispered, remembering Raoul's promise. "It will find you again." The cube glowed brighter, as if answering him. Eli leaned closer, but before he could study it, a sudden noise echoed through the tunnel. Footsteps. Close. He killed the lamp and froze. The light from the cube faded instantly as if understanding. Voices drifted in, low and sharp. "The scanner shows movement ahead." "It's him." Eli's heart thudded. He slipped behind a pipe stack, holding his breath. The two hunters entered the chamber, flashlights cutting through the dark. The taller one, a broad man with metal implants on his jaw, raised a tracking pad. "Signal was strong here," he said. "He's close." The other, smaller and wearing a red visor, sniffed the air like a predator. "The cube emits trace energy. It can't hide forever." Eli gripped his knife tighter. He knew fighting wasn't an option. They were trained, armed, and far stronger. But if he stayed still, they'd find him anyway. He looked at the small vent behind him. It was narrow, but maybe. The shorter hunter turned suddenly, light sweeping across the room. "Eli ducked too late. There!" the man shouted. "I see him." Eli dove through the vent opening, scraping his shoulder as a plasma bolt tore past him, lighting up the tunnel. He crawled fast. The cube pressed against his chest until he dropped out the other side into another corridor. Behind him, the hunter's boots clanged on metal. "Stop, boy. You can't run forever. Watch me," he yelled, sprinting into the dark. He burst through a broken hatch into an old freight yard filled with rusting cargo pods. His lungs burned, his legs shaking. He hid behind one of the pods and waited, chest heaving. The hunter's lights flickered in the distance like fireflies. Eli looked down at the cube again. "Please," he whispered. "Help me." The cube pulsed sharply, then projected a faint shield of light around him. It wasn't strong, but it shimmered like mist, bending light. His body faded slightly from view. Eli stared, stunned. "You can cloak me?" The cube pulsed once more, almost proud. He stayed silent as the hunters entered the yard, scanning every shadow. One passed so close that Eli could see the reflection of his own faint outline in the man's visor. The hunter frowned, confused, then turned away. After a tense minute, they moved on. Eli waited until their footsteps disappeared. The light around him faded slowly and his body reappeared. He sank to the ground, shaking from adrenaline. "All right," he whispered, smiling weakly. "You win, Cube. You're officially magic." He looked up at the stars through the gaps in the broken roof. Somewhere out there, Raal was alive. He could feel it again. A strange connection through the device, like a faint heartbeat echoing across space. But now he understood something else too. The cube wasn't just a gift. It was a weapon, a key, and a message all at once. The men hunting him weren't after money. They were after control. Whoever held the cube could control whatever Raal had built. Eli stood, clutching it close. "Then I'll keep running," he said softly. "Until I find you again, old man." Above him, thunder rolled in the distance, and not a storm this time, but ships entering the atmosphere. The hunt wasn't over. It had only just begun. The rain had stopped, but the sky above Vesper 9 still carried the color of ash. Eli stood at the edge of the abandoned freight yard, staring up as streaks of light tore across the clouds. They weren't falling stars, they were ships, sleek, dark, and silent, moving in perfect formation. His heart sank. "They found me," he whispered. The cube in his pocket began to hum again, stronger this time. Its glow spilled through the fabric like a heartbeat. He pulled it out, and the air around him changed. Warmer, brighter, charged with strange energy. Then a low voice echoed, not from the cube, but from the air itself. "Eli Ward," he froze. "Who's there?" "Do not run. You are safe now." The voice was calm, deep, and familiar. Eli's chest tightened. "Raal." A brilliant light burst open before him, swirling dust into a golden storm. Out of it stepped a group of armored alien guards, their armor gleaming with silver patterns. Between them walked Raal himself, alive, standing tall, dressed in a dark cloak that shimmered with soft light. Eli took a step back, disbelief flooding his face. "You're alive," Raal smiled gently. "I told you the cube would find you again." For a moment, Eli couldn't speak. He'd dreamed of this, of seeing Raal alive, but now that it was real, he felt anger, relief, and confusion all at once. "You disappeared. I thought you were dead. Soldiers were everywhere. They're still hunting me." Raal's eyes softened. "I know. I never meant to put you in danger. But I had to vanish, to see who would come for me and who would show mercy." Eli frowned. "What are you talking about?" Raal motioned for the guards to step back. He came closer, moving with the quiet grace of someone who carried centuries of power behind him. "I wanted to test the heart of humanity," he said. "Most see us and my kind as gods or monsters. But I wanted to see if compassion still lived in the small corners of your worlds." Eli shook his head. "You crashed on purpose?" Raal nodded once. "Yes, the ship was remote piloted, the body you found was mine. But not fully flesh. It was an avatar, a living shell part of me." "You didn't just save a stranger, Eli, you saved me." The boy stared at him in shock. "You were testing people?" Raal's gaze turned distant. "I was testing hearts. Many passed by the crash before you. Some came to steal, others to sell what they could find. Only you came to help." Eli looked down, unsure what to say. "I didn't do it for a test. You were hurt, that's all." A small, proud smile touched Raal's face. "Exactly why I chose you." He reached out his hand and the cube floated from Eli's palm, glowing brighter as it spun slowly in the air. This is not just a gift, Raoul said. It is a key. A link to my entire fleet, my empire, my legacy. When I gave it to you, it bound itself to your life force. That's why they couldn't take it. Eli stared at the glowing cube in awe. So it's connected to you? It's connected to us now, Raoul said softly. You carried it with courage even when you were hunted. You protected it without knowing its value. That means more than wealth or status ever could. He stepped closer and placed a hand on Eli's shoulder. The warmth of his touch spread through the boy like sunlight after a storm. You reminded me of something I had forgotten, kindness without reward. Eli swallowed hard, his voice low. So what happens now? Raoul looked up at the sky where his ships hovered like silent guardians. Now I end the hunt. Those who chased you will face judgment. He gestured, and one of the guards brought forth a floating holoscreen. The faces of the bounty hunters appeared, bound in light restraints aboard a ship. They serve the Dominion, Raoul explained. Greedy men selling loyalty for power. They are finished. Eli looked down. And me, what am I supposed to do? Raoul smiled faintly. Live, learn, lead. Lead? Eli repeated, confused. Raoul nodded. I see in you what most of my kind have lost, empathy. I have wealth enough to buy 1,000 worlds, but not one heart like yours. You will come with me, Eli Ward. You will learn what it means to build, not just survive. Eli's throat tightened. You want me to go with you? Into space? Yes, Raoul said gently. The stars are waiting, and they need people like you. Eli looked up at the sky, the silver ships gleaming against the dark clouds. A life in the stars, something he had only seen in dreams, was now real. He thought of the cave, the rain, the old man's bleeding hand, and his own choice to help a stranger. Slowly, he nodded. All right, Raoul, I'll go. Raoul smiled, the light from the ship shining in his eyes. Good. Then the story of Eli Ward begins here, not as an orphan of Vesper 9, but as the heir to something greater. The cube floated between them, spinning faster, wrapping them both in soft, golden light. The freight yard dissolved into brightness, and for the first time, Eli wasn't running anymore. He was rising. The first thing Eli noticed was silence. No wind, no rain, no noise of the colony below. Just silence, vast and endless. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer standing in the freight yard. He was inside a ship, enormous, bright and beautiful. Walls of silver curved like waves of light. Blue energy flowed through the floor like living rivers. He stepped forward slowly, trying to breathe. Everything felt unreal. Through the wide viewing window, the planet Vesper 9 floated far below, a blue-gray sphere surrounded by clouds. For the first time in his life, Eli saw his world from the sky. It looked small, fragile, almost peaceful. Behind him, the deep, calm voice spoke again. You see it now, Raoul said, stepping beside him. The world that forgot you. The same world that gave you the strength to become more. Eli didn't answer at first. He pressed his hand to the glass, staring at the lights of the colony glowing faintly on the surface. I never thought I'd leave it, he said softly. It was all I had. Raoul's gaze followed his. Every empire begins with someone who had nothing, he said. The difference is what they do when the universe finally looks at them. Eli turned to him. You really want me to be part of this? I'm just a scrap boy. I don't know anything about fleets or power or whatever you do. Raoul smiled faintly. You know compassion. You know how to act when no one is watching. That is worth more than any title. He waved his hand, and the cube floated into the air between them, glowing like a small sun. It projected images. Worlds scarred by war, people working in silence, children building shelters out of metal and hope. These, Raoul said, are the colonies I could not save alone. I built an empire of trade and wealth, but I forgot mercy. My kind grew cold, counting numbers instead of lives. But when you saved me, Eli, you reminded me of what it means to care. Eli watched the images change, hungry children receiving food, broken cities glowing with light again. His chest tightened. You want to rebuild them? Raoul nodded. Yes, and I want you to help me lead the mission. You'll learn from my council, from my captains, and from the stars themselves. You'll learn not to rule, but to guide. Eli's eyes widened. Me, a leader? Raoul placed a hand on his shoulder. You already are one. You led with your heart the night you chose to save me. That is the kind of leader the galaxy needs. For a moment, Eli said nothing. He looked at his reflection in the glass. Still the same boy, still thin and scarred, but now standing beside a being of legend. Somewhere deep inside, something shifted. The fear he'd carried all his life began to fade, replaced by quiet resolve. He nodded slowly. "Then teach me." Raoul's expression softened, almost proud. "I will." Later, the ship's engines hummed like a living heartbeat. Eli followed Raoul through long corridors lined with light and alien script. Guards and officers bowed their heads as they passed. Some looked surprised, a human boy walking beside their ruler, but no one questioned it. They entered the command bridge. Dozens of windows opened to the stars. It was like standing inside a sea of fireflies, every star a world, every light a story. Raoul extended his hand toward the view. This fleet was built to conquer, but today it begins a different purpose. He turned to Eli. "Would you like to give the first order?" Eli blinked. "Me?" "Yes," Raoul said with a gentle nod. "The cube listens to both of us now. It will obey your voice." Eli swallowed, heart racing. He looked at the glowing cube resting in the center console. His reflection shimmered on its surface. For a moment he thought of the caves, the rain, the old man bleeding in the dark. He thought of the promise he'd made. Keep it safe. He took a deep breath and said clearly, "Set course for the nearest colony that needs help. We're going to fix what's broken." The cube pulsed brightly. The stars outside shifted as the ship's engines roared to life. Crew members looked up, waiting for Raoul's reaction, but Raoul only smiled. "A good first command," he said softly. "The beginning of many." As the fleet moved forward, Eli stood beside him, watching the stars stretch into lines of light. He had nothing left from the world below, no family, no home, but in that moment he didn't feel empty. He felt ready. Raoul turned to him one last time. "You saved me once, Eli Ward. Now together we will save them all." The boy smiled, eyes shining with determination. "Then let's begin." And as the ships vanished into the endless glow of hyperspace, the orphan from the colony became something the universe had never seen before. Not a survivor, not a runaway, but a symbol of hope. The stars waited ahead, endless and bright. And Eli Ward, the human who had saved an alien billionaire, now carried the legacy of both worlds in his hands.